Hi everybody, this is the website boy with number 16, and today I'm going to show you how to use loops in JavaScript. There comes times when we need to do the code repeatedly. We need to do multiple functions. For example, let's say I want to check the contact field, the contact form, and I want to check all the fields inside the form. I can use a loop to iterate to go through all the fields and check for one specific value that I'm looking for. Let's say I also want to change all the paragraphs in one web page. All right, I use a loop to iterate or go through all the paragraphs and do whatever I wanted to do. So if I want to turn all the paragraphs blue, I can do that. If I want to turn all the paragraphs that have an ID of blue, then I use a loop. It's gonna be many times in your functions, in your applications, that you will need loops. And this is a very awesome tutorial. You're gonna love it. All right, so we're gonna be talking about loops, right? So just to give you a brief, very simple explanation about loops. Loops is just a function that does multiple things for us. For example, if we want a function to go through a form, if we want to validate all the form fields, we have 100 form fields and we want to validate them, then we use loops. If we want to go through each of the paragraphs in our website and make them blue, we use loops. If we want to make three divs appear in front of the screen for people with a cartoon, we use loops. All right, so this just to give an example. If we want to check an array's values, we use loops. And I'm going to show you exactly. The most common loop that we use is called for, and this is how you write it. All right, so inside these parentheses there are three things that you need to keep in mind, that you need to write. Actually, you need to declare a variable, and this variable will be something like a counter, and you can name this variable whatever you want. Usually people use a I for initializer because it's called an index or initializer. All right, it depends on who you have that explaining it to you, so that you have different names for it. So I'm gonna call it a counter. All right, and I'm gonna set it equal to 0 because you need to set it equal to whatever number you want the loop to start from. Right now we want to start from the first number, right? The next thing that you need to actually do in a loop is actually check a condition. So if, for example, counter, all right, is less than 10, I want you to do something, right? But now the next step after this is, besides the condition, is we need to increment. So increment, we need to set up an increment index. And the way we do that is we actually add 1 to counter every time it goes around. Remember, the loops keeps going around. So the first time is gonna be worth 0, but then as long as it's not 10, if it's gonna go around next time, it's gonna be incremented by 1, right? And it's gonna be 1 next time. After that, it's gonna be 2. After that, 3, 4, 5, until it reaches 10. When it reaches 10, it stops, because then it's gonna be false. Remember, this has to be true in order for this loop to be running. It's a condition, right? So let's say, for example, this code is gonna be executing as long as the loop is true. And the counter right now is equal to a number. Right now it's equal to 0, but every time it goes around, it's going to be equal to a number incremented by 1. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. So if we write this, put this on the screen right now, it's going to be equal to many numbers until it reaches 10. So let's say, for example, we save it and I refresh it, and you see that it says 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then stopped at 9. The reason is because it already started at 0. From 0 to 9 is 10 numbers. All right. So when it got to number 10, it said, listen, I'm already equal to 10, so I'm not going to print you out. So it doesn't print out 10 because it's already equal to 10 spots inside that loop, right? So let's say, for example, I wanted to actually be inside an array with a loop. Let's say I want to go into this cities array, right? How would I get in there? Very simple. You need to actually let the loop know that you want to go through to this arrays, and you want to go through it to the end of the array. All right. So as long as the counter is less than the cities, right? And then we use a function called length, right? This is gonna measure, is gonna be equal to the length of this array. So it's gonna be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, to 4, to 5 spots, right? And then if I go now and I save it and I refresh it here, it doesn't give me anything. For some reason, Siri, I think I messed it up. Counter 0 and the counter length. Of course I messed it up because I didn't close it with my semicolon. Remember that, right? That's a mistake that it's very easy to make, especially when you are explaining things. But anyways, if I refresh it, then I get those values printed out there. So now what I get is this counter variable. Remember that this equals, it's incremented by one every time it goes around. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I mean 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it prints out the numbers only. If I wanted to print out the value with the number, I would have to add it right here. So I would have to add something like concatenate the counter, right? The number with the array spot. And we actually alert or print out arrays like this, right? So inside this bracket, you want to actually put this value here because this counter variable gets attached to each of these values every time it goes around. So inside the array, we want to actually print that whatever this variable is attached to when it's inside the array. So right now it's going to 1, 2, 3, and at that specific moment is going, that counter is going to attach to any of these values inside this array. So if we refresh and right here, you see that it's happening right now. 0, 1 Santiago, which is right here. Mexico is 0 is Santiago, Mexico is 1, like that. You see the numbers right here. You can't see it much. I'm going to actually attach it so that way you can see it. I'm going to break it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually attach a break element there, new break. That way you can see what I mean. Refresh here, and now you can see it going horizontally here, vertically, right? 0, 1, 2, and then it's going down. Then you can also put a line there. I mean, just to make it like that, you know? So there are many things that you can do with it. I just wanted to show you this is the things that you can, this is what an array would do. And you can also put a, this is what a loop would do. You can also put this inside a document that write an order list, right? So if you wanted to do that, instead of writing this stuff like this here, let's just take this off and show it to you. Putting this in an order list is actually cleaner to do. And I would do something like this. And then, right? Make sure that you write this code outside the for loop, because if you write this code inside, it's gonna repeat itself many times as long as you have these values there. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm outside. I'm gonna close this and make sure here that you include the list items. All right, and then you concatenate the what you want to print out. In this case, we want to print out the counter, actually counter. I was I'm used to writing I all the time. And make sure that you close your list item right here, right? So what we're doing is we created an order list, right? Order list. And then inside here, we created a list item concatenated with the as value of that array at a specific time of the loop. And this is gonna print out as many times as there is the length, as the length of the array. So in this case, it's gonna print out like 5 times, right? So if we save and we go back and we refresh, we can see that that this loop printed out all the values, right? So if we actually inspect element on this, we can see that the loop made list items as it went in through the array and printed these values there on the list items, right? So that's pretty cool, isn't it? So loops are very useful, especially when you have a lot of code that you need to do multiple things with. So anyways, I just wanted to give you some basic explanation about what a loop was, and hopefully this helped you out. And if it did, please like the video, subscribe to it, and make a comment. It helps me out when you guys like the videos. Thank you again, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.